The HOA sent me a $38,000 fine, but their fraud was already unraveling. The first time those fake deputies put handcuffs on me, the whole neighborhood stood there watching like I was the criminal. Red and blue lights flashed across Blackwater Lake. My daughter was hiding inside the ranch house, and HOA President Vanessa Mercer smiled like she'd finally broken me. What she didn't know was I'd spent 8 months building a federal fraud case against her entire operation. And by the time the black SUVs rolled through my ranch gate, her little kingdom was already collapsing. If you enjoy stories about land, law, and quiet people standing their ground, subscribe and stay with me, because this one only gets crazier from here. The first thing I saw that morning was red and blue light flashing across the frozen water of Blackwater Lake. Not real police lights, too bright, too sloppy. They bounced off the ice near my shoreline fence while diesel engines growled up the ranch road like they owned it. I set my coffee mug down beside the porch railing and watched 4 black SUVs roll through my open gate. The annual Lakeside Heritage Festival had already packed the neighboring HOA, with tourists, investors, and half the county's rich retirees. White tents covered the shoreline beyond the ridge. Country music drifted across the lake through the cold Wyoming air. Somewhere near the marina, somebody cheered over a chili cook-off. Then the SUVs stopped in front of my barn. 4 men stepped out wearing tactical jackets with gold sheriff-style badges stitched over the chest. Connor Pike climbed out last. Connor always moved like he thought cameras were watching him. Tall, trim beard, black gloves, sidearm riding low on his hip, even though Wyoming licensing records showed he wasn't authorized to carry one through private enforcement work. He adjusted the badge on his jacket before walking toward me. "Mornin', Mr. Cole," he called. "You're being detained under Silver Creek Community Safety Authority." I leaned against the porch post. "That's so." One of the fake deputies started filming me with a phone. Connor stopped at the bottom step and unfolded a paper from a leather folder. The wind snapped the pages hard enough for me to catch the Silver Creek Estates logo across the top. "Failure to comply with emergency shoreline regulations," he announced loudly. "Obstruction of community infrastructure access. Repeated refusal to cooperate with HOA safety officers." The words echoed across the yard. 3 neighbors stood near the road, pretending not to stare. More people slowed their trucks outside my gate every few seconds now. Festival traffic, curious eyes. Exactly what Vanessa Mercer wanted. Public humiliation. I looked past Connor toward the lake. Across the ridge, I could already see people gathering near the festival tents. Phones were coming out. "Funny," I said calmly. "Didn't realize HOA bylaws overruled county property deeds." Connor smirked. "You can explain that to the board." "No," I said. "I really can't." His jaw tightened slightly, small thing. Most people missed those little cracks. I didn't. Connor wasn't comfortable unless people acted scared. One of the deputies stepped toward the porch. "Sir, turn around. I didn't move." The wind rolled across the pasture behind me, rattling the cedar fence line beside the frozen shoreline. My father built that fence 30 years ago with railroad ties, hauled out from Cody in a rusted livestock trailer. Half the posts still leaned west from the storms. Connor looked over my shoulder toward the ranch house windows. "You alone today?" "Why? No daughter around." There it was, the threat hidden inside the question. Something cold moved through my chest, but my face never changed. "Lily's fine," I said quietly. Connor smiled like he'd won something. Behind him, one of the SUVs still flashed fake emergency lights across my barn doors. Illegal in all 50 states, unless authorized through law enforcement certification. I'd already logged the vehicle identification number 3 weeks earlier, Exhibit 42BB. Every second this continued, my case got stronger. Connor took another step forward. "Last chance, Ethan. Cooperate peacefully." I studied him for a moment. Then I raised my hands, not because I was surrendering, because timing mattered. The fake deputy grabbed my wrist too fast, twisting my arm harder than necessary, before snapping cold steel cuffs around both wrists. Tight, amateur tight. Good. Pain registered cleanly on camera. Another exhibit. The deputy pushed me down the porch steps, while somebody across the road muttered, "Jesus Christ." Phones followed us now from every direction. Connor turned toward the growing crowd near the gate and raised his voice deliberately. Silver Creek Estates takes resident safety seriously. Nobody is above compliance enforcement. That line was rehearsed. Vanessa probably wrote it herself. I kept my eyes down while they marched me across the gravel toward the SUV. Humiliation worked best when the victim fought back. I didn't. That confused them. As Connor shoved me toward the rear door, I caught movement farther down the dirt access road beyond the cottonwoods. 3 black Suburbans. Government issue. No emergency lights. Moving fast. Connor didn't notice them yet. Neither did the crowd. I ducked into the SUV without resistance. The fake deputy slammed the door behind me, hard enough to shake the windows. Inside smelled like cheap vinyl and cigarette smoke. The cuffs bit into my wrists while Connor climbed into the front passenger seat. "You should've paid the fees," he said without looking back at me. I stared through the windshield toward the ranch gate. The black Suburbans were closer now. Real law enforcement vehicles moved differently. Smooth, controlled, purposeful. I knew every driver inside those trucks. Connor adjusted his badge again. "You understand what happens after today?" he asked. "Board's filing seizure motions on your shoreline easement next week. Judge signs off. You lose access to half this ranch road." Outside, festival music drifted faintly through the cold air. People still watched from the fence line, waiting. Connor finally noticed the approaching vehicles in his side mirror. His smile faded slightly. "Who the hell is that?" I looked at the reflection of flashing fake lights across the frozen lake and finally let myself breathe. 8 months, 86 exhibits, 3 federal subpoenas, 2 sealed indictments sitting inside a courthouse in Cheyenne. And Vanessa Mercer had just ordered fake cops to arrest an FBI agent in front of 200 witnesses. The Suburbans turned through my ranch gate. Connor Pike went silent, and for the first time all morning, I smiled. 6 months earlier, nobody in Silver Creek Estates had paid much attention to me. When I first rolled through the subdivision gates with a horse trailer and a battered Ford pickup coated in Wyoming dust. That changed the second Vanessa Mercer realized I wasn't planning to sell my land. Blackwater Lake sat between my ranch and Silver Creek like a mirror nobody could agree who owned. My father ran cattle there for 30 years before cancer, buried him under a cedar tree overlooking the western ridge. The HOA developers arrived later with luxury docks, imported stone entrances, and investors from Denver who wanted authentic western waterfront living. Vanessa wanted the shoreline clean. By clean, she meant mine gone. The first violation notice arrived 4 days after I moved into the ranch house permanently. Unapproved agricultural storage. That storage happened to be my father's hay trailer parked beside the barn. The second notice came over fencing aesthetics. The third complained about livestock odor drifting across the lake during evening events at the Silver Creek Marina. I kept every letter, every envelope, every signature. At night, after Lily fell asleep upstairs, I spread them across the kitchen table beside county plat maps and handwritten notes. The ranch house still creaked the same way it had when I was a kid. Wind pushed cold air through the old window seams while I highlighted dates in yellow marker. Patterns mattered, especially when people thought nobody was paying attention. Lily wandered downstairs one evening carrying her mother's old flannel blanket around her shoulders. "You working again?" she asked quietly. "Just organizing paperwork." She frowned at the stack of violation notices. Why do those people hate cows so much? That almost made me laugh. Because cows don't fit their brochure. She climbed into the chair beside me while I signed for another certified HOA letter. Her hair still smelled like strawberry shampoo from bath night. You gonna fight them? I looked toward the dark lake outside the kitchen window. Not yet. That answer bothered her. Truth was, it bothered me too. The next morning, Vanessa Mercer finally introduced herself properly. She arrived in a white Range Rover that stopped sideways across my ranch gate like she was blocking a criminal escape route. Vanessa stepped out wearing riding boots so clean they'd never touched mud in their lives. "You're Ethan Cole?" she asked. I nodded once. She glanced toward my cattle grazing near the frozen shoreline. Silver Creek residents are concerned about declining visual standards around the lake. Funny, I said. My family owned this shoreline before Silver Creek was a hole in the ground. Her smile tightened. We both know development changes communities, and fences still mark property lines. That landed harder than she expected. Vanessa opened a leather folder and handed me another violation packet. "Outlead fencing modifications," she said. "You are also in non-compliance regarding marina access easements." I looked down at the document. The easement map attached to the notice showed part of my ranch road labeled as shared HOA property. Except it wasn't, not legally. Somebody had altered the boundary copy. I folded the paper carefully. "You should really verify county records before printing these." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Excuse me? The survey line is wrong. It came from Silver Creek Legal Counsel. Then your lawyers are either lazy or lying." The silence that followed turned sharp. Behind Vanessa, I could hear hammers echoing from the HOA marina expansion near the lake. Investors had been pouring money into new shoreline cabins all summer. Cabins partially built on my family's easement corridor. Vanessa stepped closer. "People around here cooperate with the board, Ethan. Makes life easier." "What?" "There it is. The threat." Her expression flattened immediately. She wasn't used to people saying the quiet part out loud. That afternoon, somebody cut the chain on my north pasture gate. 20 head of cattle wandered onto County Route 16 before I got them rounded up. By sunset, another violation notice waited in my mailbox. Failure to control livestock near HOA property. No mention of the broken chain. No mention of trespassing. Just another fine. I carried the notice inside and slid it beneath the growing stack under my bed. Later that night, headlights rolled slowly down my dirt road. Old Ruth Delgado climbed out of a faded green pickup, carrying a long cardboard survey tube beneath one arm. "You keep getting those HOA letters?" she asked. "Every week." She handed me the tube. "Then you better see this before they bury it." Inside were county easement surveys dated 1987, original shoreline records. And right there in faded blue ink was the truth Silver Creek had spent years hiding. The HOA Marina Road crossed directly through Cole family land. Not partially, completely. I stared at the maps while Ruth watched me carefully from the porch. "They've been stealing shoreline access for years," she said quietly. Far down by the lake, construction lights from Silver Creek shimmered across the dark water. I rolled the maps back into the tube slowly. And for the first time since moving home, I realized this wasn't about HOA fines anymore. It was about fraud. The next Monday, Silver Creek Estates unveiled what Vanessa Mercer proudly called the Community Safety Initiative. Everybody else called it the Patrol. Connor Pike rolled through the subdivision entrance in a black SUV fitted with illegal red and blue emergency lights, while HOA residents clapped beside the marina. 2 more vehicles followed behind him, carrying men in tactical jackets with gold star badges stitched over their chests. From a distance, they looked like county deputies. That was the point. I watched from the fuel pumps across Route 16, while Connor shook hands beside a giant Silver Creek banner that read, "Keeping our community safe." The irony almost hurt. By noon, the fake patrol had already set up checkpoints along the lake access road. Contractors entering the marina got waved through. Ranch workers hauling feed trailers got stopped and questioned. One of my ranch hands, Luis Ortega, called me just after lunch. They photographed my license plate and asked if I was transporting hazardous livestock waste, he said. What the hell is hazardous livestock waste? Cow manure with better marketing, I answered. Luis didn't laugh. Nobody around Blackwater Lake laughed much anymore. That evening, I drove down to the marina store for propane and found Connor Pike standing beside the docks, questioning an older couple over expired guest permits. He spotted my truck immediately. Well, he called out loudly, if it isn't Silver Creek's favorite outlaw. A few homeowners chuckled nervously nearby. Connor lived for audiences. I stepped out slowly and grabbed the propane receipt from the counter window. You stopping people now? I asked. Community safety. You're not law enforcement. His smile sharpened. You keep saying that like it matters. Behind him, one of the fake deputies photographed my truck again. Second time that week. I logged the deputy's face automatically in my head. Dark beard, scar near the left eyebrow, Glock riding exposed without retention holster. Amateur. Connor leaned closer. Vanessa's board meeting is Thursday night. They're discussing emergency shoreline acquisition. There's no such thing. There is when enough homeowners vote yes. I folded the propane receipt into my jacket pocket. You planning to vote on stealing my ranch road too? Connor laughed loudly enough for the dock crowd to hear. Careful, Ethan. People around here are starting to think you're hostile. There it was again, the performance. Manufactured fear sold as community protection. I started walking back toward the truck when I heard Lily's voice near the boat ramp. Dad. She stood beside the marina railing, holding 2 grocery bags almost too heavy for her arms. Her winter coat hung halfway open against the cold wind coming off the lake. Connor saw her immediately and smiled. Well now, he said loudly. Residents are supposed to wear marina wristbands during community events. Lily froze. Connor pointed toward her coat sleeve. Where's your access band? She's my daughter, I said flatly. Rules apply to everybody. Around us, people suddenly got very interested in their coffee cups and fishing gear. Nobody stepped in. That part always tells you what kind of place you're standing in. Lily looked up at me quietly. Did I do something wrong? Connor answered before I could. Depends whether your father likes following rules. Something inside me tightened hard enough to hurt, but my face never changed. I took the grocery bags gently from Lily's hands. She didn't break any rules, I said calmly. And if you speak to my daughter again without me present, we're going to have a different conversation. Connor tilted his head slightly. That a threat? No, I said. That's documentation. For the first time since I'd met him, Connor Pike stopped smiling completely. Good. He was finally hearing the wrong tone in my voice. I walked Lily back to the truck without another word. She stayed quiet most of the drive home, staring out across the frozen shoreline while snow clouds rolled over the mountains west of the ranch. Those guys aren't real cops, she finally said softly. No, then why's everybody scared of them? Because fear is easier than paperwork. I almost said it out loud. Instead, I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. Sometimes people confuse confidence with authority. When we reached the ranch house, headlights appeared again near the shoreline road below the pasture. Another patrol SUV creeping slowly beside my fence line, watching, recording, building pressure. Exactly like Vanessa wanted. After Lily went upstairs, I unlocked the gun safe in my office. Not for a weapon, for the evidence case hidden beneath it. Inside sat flash drives, printed bank records, HOA invoices, county plats, and 37 separate incident reports connected to Silver Creek Estates. I added today's notes carefully. Marina incident, child intimidation, impersonation pattern continues. Then I sealed a thick manila envelope and attached a printed label across the front. Federal evidence, intake Denver field office. At midnight, I drove alone into town. Snow drifted across the empty highway while Blackwater Lake disappeared behind me in darkness. The overnight shipping clerk barely looked up when I handed him the package. "Important?" he asked. I watched him scan the tracking barcode. "Very." Back outside, my phone buzzed once. "Unknown number." I answered immediately. A woman's voice spoke low and calm. "We received your last submission, Ethan." I leaned against the truck door and watched snow swirl beneath the gas station lights. "How bad is it?" I asked. There was a pause. Then she answered quietly. "Worse than we thought." The line went silent for a second except for static and highway wind humming through my phone speaker. Then the woman spoke again. "We traced 3 separate HOA reserve accounts into shell construction companies registered in Nevada. Same officers, same mailing address. Millions moved through them." I stared across the empty gas station lot. And Vanessa Mercer signed off on all of it. Every transfer. I already knew the answer before she said it. "What about the easement fraud?" Another pause. "That's the dangerous part. Somebody inside county's helped bury the original shoreline records." That got my attention. Corruption inside an HOA was one thing. Corruption tied to county offices turned federal investigations ugly fast. "You still with me, Ethan?" she asked. "Yeah, you need to be careful now. If they realize you're documenting financial records instead of just fighting violations, this could escalate." Too late. It already had. The next morning, I found tire tracks running through the north pasture beside the lake. Fresh, deep, construction equipment. I followed them down toward the shoreline fence my wife had helped build 3 summers before she died. Cedar posts, hand-cut rails, simple and sturdy, or at least it had been. Now half the fence lay crushed into frozen mud beside the waterline. Splintered rails floated near the reeds, while yellow survey stakes stood hammered into the shoreline dirt every 20 feet. Silver Creek expansion markers. My stomach dropped. Then I saw the memorial bench, broken in half. Lily's painted lanterns lay scattered beside it in pieces of cracked blue glass. For a second, I just stood there, listening to the lake water slap softly against the rocks. The bench had my wife's name burned into the wood. Mara Cole, beloved wife and mother. Vanessa's contractors had driven straight through it. I heard tires behind me. Sheriff Dean Rucker climbed out of his county truck slowly, boots crunching across frozen gravel. "Hell," he muttered when he saw the fence. "You got here quick," Ruth called me. He crouched near the broken bench and picked up one of Lily's lantern pieces carefully. "They report this construction work. No permits filed through county access." That's what I thought. Rucker stood and looked toward the Silver Creek Marina expansion, farther down the shoreline where excavators still moved dirt beside the frozen lake. "They're getting bold," he said quietly. "Or desperate." That made him glance at me differently. Rucker had been county sheriff 12 years, smart enough to know when a situation smelled wrong. "Ethan," he said carefully, "you got something bigger going on here than a property dispute." I looked out across Blackwater Lake. Maybe he studied me another second but didn't push. Good sheriff. Wrong time. I walked back toward the ranch house without another word and pulled open the hidden compartment beneath my workshop bench. Inside sat 3 hard drives and 6 wireless trail cameras. I loaded the shoreline footage onto my laptop. Timestamp 9:14 a.m. 2 Silver Creek bulldozers crossed my pasture fence line first. Then came Vanessa Mercer herself, white coat, sunglasses, clipboard tucked beneath one arm. She pointed directly at the memorial fence while contractors waited. Even muted, her body language screamed entitlement. One worker hesitated near the bench. Vanessa stepped closer and pointed again. The bulldozer rolled forward. Fence posts snapped. The memorial bench shattered beneath the blade. Then came the part that made my jaw tighten. After the contractors finished, Vanessa walked over to Lily's lanterns herself and kicked them into the lake. I replayed that section twice. Clear image, clear trespass. Clear destruction of memorial property. Perfect chain of evidence. I exported the footage immediately. 3 backup copies, 1 local drive, 1 encrypted upload, 1 external transfer. Never trust single storage during active investigations. By noon, another certified HOA letter arrived at my mailbox. Notice of shoreline non-compliance. I opened it standing right there beside the broken fence. Silver Creek Estates hereby notifies property holder Ethan Cole that unauthorized barriers interfering with community shoreline improvement have been lawfully removed. I stopped reading. Attached behind the notice sat a demand for immediate payment of $12,000 in environmental correction fees. They destroyed my property, then billed me for it. That level of arrogance only happens when people think nobody can stop them. I drove straight into town. Attorney Claire Maddox kept her office above an old feed store near the county courthouse. Sharp woman, former water rights litigator, reputation for making developers regret breathing near disputed land. She watched the shoreline footage once without speaking. Then again. Finally, she leaned back in her chair slowly. Jesus Christ, that bad? Ethan, this isn't just trespassing anymore. She paused the footage on Vanessa standing beside the destroyed memorial bench. This is criminal property destruction tied to a fraudulent land claim. I handed her Ruth Delgado's original easement surveys. Claire spread them across her desk carefully. The room went quiet. Then she frowned. These lot extensions, she muttered. What about them? She traced one finger across the shoreline maps. Silver Creek's marina shouldn't legally exist where it's sitting. Cold moved through my chest. How far off are they? Claire looked up at me. About 40 feet onto your ranch. Outside her office window, I could hear construction hammers echoing faintly across town from the direction of Blackwater Lake. Silver Creek wasn't just harassing me anymore. They were building an empire on stolen land. And now I had proof. Claire Maddox didn't waste time pretending otherwise. She spread the shoreline maps, HOA invoices, and county plats across her desk until the entire office looked like a murder board built by an angry surveyor. The marina expansion alone violates 3 easement restrictions, she said. But that's not even the dangerous part. She slid a stack of copied invoices toward me. Silver Creek Dam Restoration Project, quarterly maintenance payouts, emergency flood mitigation. I flipped through the totals slowly. 300,000, 600,000, 1.2 million. All billed through a company called High Ridge Infrastructure Group. I frowned. Never heard of them. You haven't because they barely exist. Claire opened another file. Nevada Incorporation Records. The registered owner of High Ridge Infrastructure Group was a holding company tied directly to Miles Avery, Silver Creek's HOA treasurer. And get this, she said, the dam repairs they billed homeowners for never happened. I looked back toward the invoices. So where'd the money go? Claire met my eyes carefully. Somewhere offshore, if I had to guess. The room fell quiet except for traffic outside the courthouse. Silver Creek homeowners thought they were funding shoreline protection and infrastructure upgrades. Instead, they'd been financing fraud. I drove home with copies of everything locked inside a steel document case beside me. The closer I got to Blackwater Lake, the heavier the silence felt. By the time I turned onto my ranch road, another certified letter waited jammed into the mailbox. Silver Creek Estates legal notice. Of course, I opened it standing beside the truck. Final demand. Payment of $38,000 in shoreline enforcement fees required to avoid property seizure action. Attached behind it sat preliminary eminent domain language claiming the HOA intended to pursue emergency roadway acquisition for community safety access. I read that line twice, then laughed once under my breath. HOAs don't get eminent domain authority. Cities do, counties do, federal agencies do. But private associations pretending they had government power, that part mattered. A lot. Inside the ranch house, Lily sat at the kitchen table, finishing homework while snow tapped softly against the windows. She looked up immediately. Another letter? Yep, bad one? The usual kind. She nodded like she already understood too much for 10 years old. That hit harder than the threats ever did. After dinner, I waited until she went upstairs before pulling the storage case from beneath my bed. The binder barely fit in my hands now. Black tabs divided everything by category: trespassing, fraud, false enforcement, easement claims, property damage. Inside the front cover sat 83 numbered exhibits. Tonight made 84. I added the new HOA demand beside copies of shoreline plats and wire transfer records while wind rattled the old cedar siding outside. The ranch house smelled faintly like coffee and dust and printer ink. Evidence has its own smell after a while. Paper, metal clips, late nights. I was halfway through organizing bank statements when headlights rolled slowly across my front pasture. Another patrol SUV. No emergency lights this time. Just intimidation. I killed the kitchen lamp and watched through the window. Connor Pike stepped out near the fence line with two of his fake deputies. They moved flashlights across my shoreline property like they were conducting surveillance. One of them photographed the damaged memorial fence. Connor pointed toward the ranch road while talking quietly into his phone. Planning something. Good pressure makes arrogant people careless. I reached beneath the sink and pulled out a small digital recorder. Timestamped the encounter. Added it to the incident log. Outside, Connor suddenly turned toward the house. For a second I thought he'd spotted movement behind the curtains. Then his phone buzzed. He checked the screen and smiled. A bad smile. The kind people wear right before they think they've won. The next morning, Ruth Delgado arrived before sunrise, carrying a cardboard tray of coffee and a county archive box held together with duct tape. "You need to see these before they disappear too," she said. Inside sat old engineering surveys tied to Blackwater Dam dating back almost 20 years. I flipped through water flow diagrams, emergency repair authorizations, and county maintenance approvals until one signature stopped me cold. Vanessa Mercer, not as HOA president, as project coordinator for Blackwater Infrastructure Holdings. I looked up slowly. Silver Creek owned the dam project before the HOA existed? Ruth nodded grimly. They built the whole community around controlling lake access. Another document slipped loose from the folder. Projected waterfront lot expansion map. The highlighted future lots extended directly across my western pasture, straight through Cole family land. My phone buzzed before I could speak. "Unknown number again," I answered immediately. "Cole," the same calm female voice spoke. "We pulled federal banking records overnight." I stepped away from the porch toward the frozen pasture. "What do you find?" "More than $6 million transferred through Silver Creek shell accounts over 5 years. I stared toward the marina construction cranes across the lake. "That enough for indictment?" "Almost. Almost." That word stayed with me after the call ended, because almost meant they still needed something bigger, something undeniable, something public. Behind me, Ruth closed the archive box carefully. "You know they're not gonna stop now," she said quietly. "No, they weren't. Not after the money got this large. And not after Connor Pike started circling my ranch every night like a man waiting for permission to escalate." Across Blackwater Lake, I could hear construction equipment grinding near the marina again. Silver Creek kept building, stealing, expanding, like they believed nobody could touch them. I looked down at the thick binder in my hands, then toward the shoreline road, and for the first time, I started wondering how far Vanessa Mercer was willing to go before this ended. I got my answer 3 nights later. The knock hit my front door at 11:18 p.m. Not a neighbor knock, not a friend. 3 hard strikes. Pause. Then 2 more. Authority Theater. Lily looked down from the upstairs hallway immediately, clutching the railing in her socks and pajamas. "Dad, it's okay," I said calmly. Go back to your room. She hesitated. Another knock rattled the door harder this time. Mr. Cole, Connor Pike shouted from outside. Silver Creek safety inspection. I waited until Lily's bedroom door closed before walking to the entryway. Then I clipped the body camera beneath my denim jacket. Audio first, video second, always. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door halfway. Connor Pike stood on my porch beneath the yellow floodlight wearing tactical black with a gold badge pinned over his chest. 3 fake deputies spread behind him across the porch steps. One carried a clipboard. Another rested his hand near his holstered pistol. Behind them, 2 SUVs flashed illegal red and blue lights across my barn and pasture. The entire ranch glowed like a staged crime scene. Connor smiled immediately. There he is? You got a warrant? I asked. His smile faded slightly. This is a community safety inspection under Silver Creek Emergency Authority. That's not a legal authority. We've received complaints about environmental hazards near the lake dam. At midnight? Connor ignored that. We need immediate access to your shoreline structures. I kept one hand resting calmly against the doorframe. No, one of the fake deputies stepped forward aggressively. Obstruction of inspection authority can result in enforcement action. I looked directly at his badge. Wrong font, cheap engraving, no certification number. Interesting, I said quietly. Connor narrowed his eyes. What's interesting? You copied the county sheriff's star incorrectly. The deputy's face changed instantly. Tiny crack, tiny panic. People pretending to hold power hate details. Connor recovered fast. You think this is a joke? No, I said. I think impersonating law enforcement becomes a felony when you use it to threaten property access. Silence settled hard across the porch. Wind rattled the frozen cottonwoods near the lake below us. One of the deputies shifted nervously. Connor studied me carefully now. Really carefully, like something finally felt wrong. You been talking to lawyers? He asked. Been reading statutes. That irritated him more. Bullies need emotional reactions to stay comfortable. I wasn't giving him one. Connor pulled a fold document from his jacket pocket and shoved it toward me. Final warning from the board. I didn't take it. He finally slapped it against my chest himself. The paper slid halfway down my jacket before I caught it. Notice of forced community access review. Another fake legal phrase. Another intimidation tactic. Except this one carried a signature at the bottom. Vanessa Mercer. Good. I looked back up at Connor. You know what real inspectors do before entering private land? What? They identify jurisdiction. Connor's jaw tightened. We're authorized through Silver Creek Estates. That's not jurisdiction. That's a homeowners association. One of the deputies muttered quietly. Can we just get this over with? Connor ignored him. We can escalate this, Ethan. There it was again. Escalate. The favorite word of weak men standing near fake badges. I leaned slightly closer. You should be careful using emergency lights on private roads. Wyoming Transportation Code treats that seriously. Now Connor's expression changed completely, not anger. Concern. How the hell do you know transportation code? I smiled slightly. Because unlike you, I read things before pretending authority. The deputy nearest the stairs laughed once accidentally before catching himself. Connor shot him a deadly look. Then he turned back toward me colder than before. Enjoy your little ranch while you can, he said quietly. Vanessa's done playing nice. She was never playing nice. Connor stepped closer until we stood barely 2 feet apart. Heritage festivals next week, he said. Board's planning a public enforcement action. I held his stare. Against me, against non-compliant residents. Translation understood. Humiliate me publicly. Remove me from the property in front of investors and homeowners. Exactly the kind of stunt Vanessa Mercer loved. Connor backed down the porch steps slowly. The fake deputies followed him toward the flashing SUVs while cameras mounted on my barn recorded every second. One of them noticed the camera too late. Hey, Connor cut him off sharply. "Get in the truck." Doors slammed, engines roared. Then the SUVs rolled away from the ranch, with fake emergency lights still washing red and blue across the frozen shoreline. I closed the door quietly, locked it, then immediately pulled the body camera from beneath my jacket. Full audio, full video, threats, false authority claims, illegal inspection attempt, use of unauthorized emergency equipment, and most importantly, a public enforcement threat tied directly to Vanessa Mercer. I uploaded the footage through the encrypted drive in my office while the house stayed silent upstairs. 2 minutes later, my secure phone buzzed. "Unknown number again," I answered immediately. "We got the upload," the woman said. "You watch it yet?" "Already." I leaned back in the desk chair and stared at the growing evidence board covering half my office wall. "What's your read?" There was a pause. Then she said quietly, "They're preparing to make you an example." I looked toward the dark window overlooking Blackwater Lake. "Good," I said. "Why good?" "Because people get careless when they think they've already won." But I didn't say that part out loud. Instead, I opened the binder beneath my desk. 91 exhibits now, and growing. The Heritage Festival banners went up around Silver Creek Estates 3 days later. White signs lined the Marina Road promising live music, local vendors, lakeside fireworks, and community heritage celebration. Vanessa Mercer loved branding. Nothing hides corruption better than matching banners and catered barbecue. I stood at the edge of my pasture that morning watching contractors hammer festival signs directly into disputed shoreline ground. My ground. Claire Maddox pulled up beside the barn in her silver Tacoma, carrying 2 banker boxes full of documents. "You were right," she said before even shutting the truck door. "That narrows it down exactly 0. She handed me a thick stack of accounting ledgers. Silver Creek's reserve funds were used to buy undeveloped shoreline parcels through proxy investors. I flipped through the records. Same names again. Miles Avery, Blackwater Infrastructure Holdings, High Ridge Infrastructure Group. Every trail circled back to the same people. Claire pointed toward one transfer highlighted in red. "See this? $680,000 wired through a land acquisition account 18 months earlier." The parcel number attached to it made my stomach tighten immediately. Coal Western Easement Corridor. They had literally tried to buy my own ranch access through shell companies. "Problem is," Claire said quietly, "they never legally owned it." I looked toward the frozen shoreline below us, where Silver Creek's marina lights still shimmered across the lake every night like they already controlled the place. They built half that subdivision on fraudulent access claims. More than half. Claire opened the second box. Inside sat photocopies of county approval records. Most were routine zoning filings. Then she handed me one signed affidavit. I read it once, then again slower. Emergency Shoreline Reclassification Authorization. Approved by County Zoning Commissioner Harold Bennett, a man who retired to Arizona 2 years ago. The authorization date came 8 months after his retirement. Backdated paperwork. Fraud layered on top of fraud. Claire folded her arms. "You know what this means? Federal conspiracy." Her eyes narrowed slightly, like she was finally hearing something underneath my voice she hadn't noticed before. "You talk like somebody who's built these cases." I closed the folder carefully. "Maybe I've seen a few." Before she could ask another question, my phone buzzed. "Sheriff Dean Rucker." I answered immediately. "You busy?" he asked. "Depends. I'm outside your gate." Rucker climbed out of his cruiser, holding a folded HOA newsletter in one hand and a look on his face I didn't like. "They sent this county-wide this morning." The front page showed a photograph of me standing beside my ranch fence beneath the headline, "Community Safety Threat." Under review below it sat 3 paragraphs accusing me of obstructing emergency shoreline improvements and threatening Silver Creek personnel. No direct crimes, just carefully written fear. Classic Vanessa. At the bottom of the page sat an announcement for the Heritage Festival. Special public safety presentation, hosted by Silver Creek Security Director, Connor Pike. I almost laughed. They're staging something, Rucker said quietly. I know. You got enough evidence yet? Yes. That enough for arrests? Almost. Always almost. Rucker studied me carefully. Ethan, who exactly are you? The question hung between us in the cold air. I looked past him toward Blackwater Lake, toward the marina, toward Vanessa Mercer's kingdom built on forged signatures and stolen shoreline. Then I made the decision. Come inside. 10 minutes later, Sheriff Dean Rucker sat across from me at the kitchen table while I unlocked the steel evidence case beneath the floor compartment in my office. Hard drives, financial records, federal subpoenas, encrypted chain of custody forms, and finally, the badge. Rucker stared at it silently. Federal Bureau of Investigation, Financial Crimes Division. I watched the realization hit him piece by piece. The fake OCA fines, the documentation, the statute citations, the body camera recordings, the patience. You're FBI, he said finally. Undercover assignment, attached to DOJ Financial Fraud Task Force. How long? Since before I moved onto the ranch. Rucker leaned back slowly. Jesus Christ. I handed him the shoreline easement records. Silver Creek's running a racketeering operation through HOA reserve accounts. Fraud, laundering, forged land transfers, impersonation, coercion. We've been building it for 8 months. And Vanessa? She signs everything. The sheriff rubbed one hand across his jaw while processing the mountain of evidence sitting across the table. Why tell me now? Because they're escalating. I slid the Heritage Festival newsletter toward him. They want a public confrontation. Rucker read Connor Pike's name beneath the event announcement again. Then he looked up slowly. You think they're gonna try to detain you? Yes. And you're letting it happen? I didn't answer immediately. Didn't need to. The silence said enough. Outside the kitchen window, headlights moved slowly along the shoreline road again. Another patrol SUV. Watching, circling, preparing. Rucker stood carefully and reached for his hat. When this breaks, he said quietly, this county's gonna lose its mind, probably. You got federal warrants ready, drafted? Judge signed? Not yet. That part mattered most. Because until signatures hit paper, Vanessa Mercer still believed she controlled Blackwater Lake. Rucker paused at the door before leaving. One more thing, he said. What? The Heritage Festival starts Saturday at 10. I nodded once. I know. He looked toward the patrol lights near the marina below the ridge. They really have no idea who they picked a fight with, do they? No, they didn't. And that was about to become the biggest mistake of Vanessa Mercer's life. Saturday morning arrived cold and bright over Blackwater Lake. By 9 o'clock, Silver Creek Estates looked less like a neighborhood and more like a campaign rally built by people with too much money and no shame. White tents lined the marina shoreline. Local reporters moved between food vendors carrying camera rigs while investors toured model waterfront lots beside the lake. Country music rolled through outdoor speakers mounted near the dock expansion Vanessa Mercer illegally built across my family's easement corridor. And hanging over everything sat giant maroon banners reading, Preserving Our Community Heritage. I parked my truck outside the ranch gate and watched Connor Pike's patrol SUVs circling the event like security for a head of state. Fake deputies everywhere, gold badges, black tactical jackets, radios clipped to their shoulders, performance authority, exactly the kind juries hate once the truth comes out. Lily wouldn't be anywhere near the festival. I'd driven her to Ruth Delgado's place before sunrise. Safer that way. Safer for what came next. My phone buzzed once as I crossed the gravel toward the marina crowd. Unknown number, I answered without slowing. You in position? The woman asked. Walking in now. Federal units are staged 2 miles east at the county's service road. Judge signed 30 minutes ago. Finally. The warrants were live. I glanced toward the lake where Vanessa Mercer stood near the main stage, wearing a cream-colored coat and a smile sharp enough to cut rope. "Any last-minute changes?" I asked quietly. "One," the woman said. "Do not break cover until Connor initiates physical detention." I almost laughed. "Trust me," I said. Connor's been dreaming about this moment for weeks. The call disconnected. As I approached the crowd, conversations started dying around me one by one. People moved aside, watched, whispered. Vanessa had spent days poisoning the neighborhood against me through newsletters, fake warnings, and HOA meetings. Now they wanted the show. Good, so did I. Connor Pike intercepted me halfway to the marina stage. 2 fake deputies flanked him immediately. "Mr. Cole," Connor announced loudly, making sure nearby cameras picked it up. "You were instructed not to attend community functions pending safety review." I kept walking. This shoreline is still public county access. Not during a restricted HOA event. That sounds made up. His jaw flexed. Nearby homeowners pretended not to stare while secretly recording on phones. Exactly what we needed. Connor stepped directly in front of me. "You're causing a disturbance." "No," I said calmly. "I'm buying coffee." That got nervous laughter from somewhere behind the crowd. Connor heard it too. Embarrassment flushed across his face immediately. Dangerous moment. Men like Connor escalate hardest when witnesses stop taking them seriously. Right on cue, Vanessa Mercer stepped onto the main stage beside the marina, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," she announced smoothly, "before this morning's investor presentation, Silver Creek leadership must address an ongoing threat to community safety." There it was, the public spectacle. Connor grabbed my arm hard enough for nearby cameras to catch it. "You need to leave now." I looked down at his hand, then back up at him. "Careful. Or what? Or your felony gets upgraded." For 1 second, real uncertainty crossed Connor Pike's face. Then Vanessa pointed directly toward us from the stage. "Mr. Pike," she called loudly into the microphone. "Remove him." Every phone camera in the crowd turned toward me at once. Connor saw it too. Saw the audience, saw the approval, and finally gave himself permission. "Ethan Cole," he announced loudly, "you are being detained for trespassing, obstruction of HOA safety enforcement, and threatening community personnel. None of those were crimes. That part mattered." I slowly set my coffee cup on a folding table beside the dock, then raised my hands. The crowd murmured immediately. Connor looked almost disappointed by how easy it was. One of the fake deputies stepped behind me and snapped handcuffs around my wrists. Too tight again. Still amateur. Vanessa smiled from the stage like she'd just won an election. "Some people," she announced into the microphone, "believe laws don't apply to them." I looked out across the marina crowd. Investors, homeowners, county officials, local news cameras. And beyond the HOA entrance gates, barely visible through the cottonwoods, black SUVs turning onto the shoreline road, right on schedule. Connor started walking me toward the stage platform. The fake deputies surrounded me tightly while people pulled out phones everywhere. No one understood what they were really recording yet. Vanessa stepped closer as Connor forced me onto the wooden platform beside her. For the first time since this started, she looked genuinely happy. "You should have settled quietly," she said under her breath. I looked past her toward the approaching federal vehicles. "You really should have checked who owned the land first." Her smile faltered slightly, then disappeared completely, because the black SUVs were moving fast now, very fast, and every single one carried real government plates. The first black Suburban blew through the Silver Creek entrance, hard enough to scatter gravel across the marina road. Then came 3 more. Doors opened before the vehicles even stopped moving. Men and women in dark tactical jackets poured out, fast and disciplined, bright yellow federal agent lettering flashing across their backs. The entire festival froze. Country music still played through the marina speakers, for another 3 confused seconds before somebody finally killed the sound. Connor Pike's grip tightened on my arm. What the hell? Too late. A woman stepped out from the lead SUV holding a badge high above the crowd. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," she shouted. "Everybody stay where you are." Lauren Bishop moved through the marina crowd like she owned the ground beneath it. Sharp gray coat, black gloves, calm eyes. Real authority doesn't need theater. Behind her, agents spread across the festival in organized lines while 2 Wyoming state investigators headed straight toward the HOA accounting tent near the investor pavilion. Vanessa Mercer stared at them from the stage with the microphone still hanging uselessly in her hand. Confusion hit her first, then fear, then calculation. I watched all 3 happen in about 4 seconds. Connor finally released my arm. "You set us up?" he whispered. I looked at the handcuffs around my wrists. "No," I said calmly. "You did." Lauren climbed the stage steps without slowing. "Connor Pike," she announced clearly. "Remove the restraints from Special Agent Ethan Cole immediately." The words landed like a shotgun blast through the crowd. Gasps everywhere. Phones lifted higher. Connor's face drained white. "What?" I turned slowly toward the audience lining the marina. Homeowners, investors, reporters. People Vanessa Mercer had spent months feeding lies. Then I looked back at Connor. "Go ahead," I said quietly. "Take another swing at fake authority." His hands shook slightly while fumbling for the cuff key. "Good. Let the cameras see it." The cuffs came off rough and crooked. Lauren handed me my credentials the second Connor stepped back. I flipped the badge open toward the crowd. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Financial Crimes Division. The marina went dead silent. Vanessa Mercer actually took one slow step backward. "No," she whispered. Lauren didn't even look at her yet. Instead, she faced the crowd directly. Silver Creek Estates is now the subject of an active federal racketeering investigation involving fraud, conspiracy, financial laundering, property theft, and criminal impersonation of law enforcement. Every word hit harder than the last. Across the festival grounds, agents began moving simultaneously. 2 deputies intercepted Miles Avery near the accounting tent before he could reach his SUV. Another team seized boxes of HOA financial records from the marina office. State investigators photographed the fake patrol vehicles, while federal agents removed the illegal emergency light systems right there in front of homeowners. The whole illusion started collapsing at once. Connor looked around wildly. "You can't arrest us over HOA violations." Lauren finally turned toward him. "No," she said calmly. "We're arresting you for impersonating peace officers while participating in organized fraud." 2 agents stepped behind Connor immediately. He panicked. "This is community security." One agent pulled the fake badge off his chest. "No certification number," he said flatly. The second agent removed Connor's sidearm. "Improper carry permit, too." Connor's knees almost buckled. Meanwhile, Vanessa Mercer stood frozen beside the microphone stand staring directly at me. Like she still couldn't force reality into place. "You," she whispered. "You were FBI this entire time?" I looked out across Blackwater Lake before answering. "You should checked the land records more carefully." That broke her composure completely. "This is harassment," she snapped suddenly at the agents. "This man threatened our community for months." Lauren handed her a thick federal warrant packet. "No," she said. "He documented your crimes for months." Vanessa tried to throw the paperwork aside. "Bad move." 2 agents immediately stepped forward. "Vanessa Mercer," Lauren announced clearly enough for every phone camera at the festival to hear, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, racketeering, property fraud, financial laundering, and criminal coercion." The marina exploded into noise. Homeowners shouting, reporters rushing forward, investors pulling phones from pockets. One woman near the front actually started crying, probably because she finally understood where her HOA fees had gone. Vanessa jerked backward as agents secured her wrists. "You don't understand what you're destroying," she yelled. I stepped closer to the stage edge. "No," I said quietly. "I understand exactly what you built." Behind us, agents rolled open the HOA accounting trailer. Inside sat rows of boxed financial files, hard drives, and sealed cash envelopes. One investigator looked up immediately. "Lauren," he called, "you need to see this." She crossed the marina quickly while cameras followed her. A minute later, she emerged holding a stack of signed land acquisition agreements tied directly to Cole family shoreline parcels. Forged signatures, forged deeds. My father's name sat on one of them. Dead for 6 years. That part hit me harder than the handcuffs ever had. Lauren walked back toward me slowly. "We got everything," she said quietly. I looked around the festival one last time. The banners, the fake deputies, the stage security patrols, the marina expansion built on stolen land. All of it unraveling under real blue lights now. Sheriff Dean Rucker finally arrived beside the shoreline road as state police blocked off the HOA entrance behind him. He tipped his hat once toward me while agents loaded Connor Pike into the back of a federal SUV. "Hell of a festival," he muttered. I watched Vanessa Mercer disappear into another vehicle surrounded by cameras and federal agents. "No," I said quietly. "Just overdue." The federal convoy cleared out of Silver Creek Estates by sunset. By then, every local news station in Wyoming had already aired footage of Vanessa Mercer being led away from the Heritage Festival in handcuffs, while Connor Pike stood beside a patrol SUV without his fake badge for the first time in 2 years. The story spread fast. Luxury HOA accused of fraud. Fake deputies arrested. Millions missing from reserve funds. Federal agents seize lakeside development records. By Monday morning, Blackwater Lake looked like somebody had pulled the power out of an entire kingdom. The marina office stayed locked behind yellow evidence tape. Construction crews vanished overnight. The fake patrol SUVs disappeared from the shoreline roads completely. And for the first time since I moved back onto the ranch, nobody drove past my property taking photographs. Silence returned slowly. The legal collapse came next. Claire Maddox filed emergency easement restoration motions before sunrise Monday while federal prosecutors unsealed the financial indictments in Cheyenne. 43 criminal counts. Wire fraud, property fraud, forgery, racketeering, impersonation of law enforcement, money laundering. The numbers attached to the case looked unreal even to me. Over $6 million siphoned through shell companies tied to Silver Creek leadership, 3 forged shoreline transfers, 2 fraudulent county reclassification filings, and 1 attempted illegal seizure of active ranch access property. Vanessa Mercer had signed almost all of it personally. That part mattered most to the judge. Connor Pike folded first. 3 days after the arrests, he agreed to cooperate with prosecutors in exchange for reduced sentencing recommendations. He handed over internal HOA recordings, encrypted accounting drives, and private messages proving Vanessa knowingly ordered intimidation campaigns against homeowners who questioned the board, including me. Especially me. Turns out Connor never actually believed Vanessa could lose. That's the danger with people who build fake kingdoms. Eventually, they start believing the walls are real. Sheriff Dean Rucker stopped by the ranch later that week carrying coffee and a folded newspaper beneath one arm. My photograph covered half the front page. Federal agent exposes HOA fraud ring at Blackwater Lake. I tossed the paper onto the kitchen counter unopened. Rucker smirked slightly. Most folks frame those. Most folks don't enjoy seeing their driveway on the evening news. He nodded toward the shoreline outside the window. County pulled all Silver Creek expansion permits this morning. Good. Marina too, especially the marina. That one took years off my shoulders immediately, because the marina sat directly across my father's western easement corridor. Without legal access rights, half the development project collapsed overnight. Rucker took a slow sip of coffee. You know homeowners have started suing already? I figured. Hundreds of them. That didn't surprise me either. People tolerate corruption right up until somebody proves they were lied to. Then they want blood in the water. The federal receivership hearing happened 2 weeks later in Cheyenne. I sat beside Claire Maddox while the judge reviewed 6 bankers' boxes of evidence tied to Silver Creek Estates. The courtroom stayed dead quiet during the financial summaries, especially when prosecutors displayed the forged shoreline deeds on the overhead monitor. My father's signature sat across one of them. Wrong handwriting, wrong date, wrong witness seal. A dead man approving land transfers 6 years after his funeral. The judge looked furious. By noon, Silver Creek Estates officially entered federal financial receivership. All HOA authority suspended immediately. All accounts frozen. All pending property actions canceled. The fake security division dissolved permanently under state order. Connor Pike later accepted a plea agreement tied to criminal impersonation and unlawful enforcement activity. No prison theatrics, no dramatic speeches. Just a tired man in county jail, clothes finally realizing nobody cared about his fake badge anymore. Vanessa Mercer fought harder. Of course she did. People like Vanessa never think consequences belong to them. But federal accounting evidence doesn't care how confident somebody sounds at HOA meetings. 8 months after the Heritage Festival arrests, she pleaded guilty to conspiracy and wire fraud charges. The sentence came down during the first snowstorm of winter. 9 years federal. Asset forfeiture included the lake house, investment accounts, and every undeveloped shoreline parcel tied to the fraudulent easement claims. Miles Avery received 6 years. Several county officials resigned quietly before charges reached them. And Blackwater Lake finally started breathing again. Real breathing. Not construction noise. Not investor presentations. Not patrol lights sweeping across ranch fences at midnight. Just water, wind, cattle moving through frozen grass. A month after the sentencing, Lily and I rebuilt the memorial fence near the shoreline together. Same cedar rails, same view across the lake. We planted new lantern hooks beside the bench where Mara's memorial plaque now sat restored above the waterline. Lily tightened the final bolt with both hands and stepped back proudly. "Think Mom would like it?" she asked. I looked across Blackwater Lake where sunset reflected orange against the frozen shoreline. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I think she would." The new Silver Creek Board eventually sent formal apologies to every homeowner in the subdivision. Ruth Delgado joined the oversight committee. Claire Maddox helped restructure shoreline access rules under state review. The marina expansion got partially demolished after survey crews confirmed it crossed protected ranch easements, exactly where Ruth's original records said it did. Truth survives longer than paperwork built on lies. That's the thing people like Vanessa Mercer never understand. A month later, I returned to the ranch house after checking cattle near the western ridge and found a thick federal envelope sitting beside the front door. No return address, just my name. Inside sat a single case file, Montana, Border County, private reservoir community, missing reserve funds, unauthorized security enforcement. And clipped to the front was a photograph of another gated lakeside development beside another stretch of stolen land. I stared at it for a long moment. Then Lily called from the kitchen asking if I wanted pancakes. I closed the file. "Coming," I answered. Outside, evening wind rolled across Blackwater Lake while cattle moved slowly beyond the restored fence line. People like Vanessa Mercer thought land was just paperwork. But out west, land remembers who protected it.
And maybe that's a real lesson is on this. Most of the strength means being louder than the next person or pushing harder until everybody else gives up. But sometimes real strength is quieter than that. Sometimes it's keeping records when nobody believes you need them. Sometimes it's staying calm when people try to embarrass you, and sometimes it's protecting the thing that's matter, your family, your name, your piece of land, without letting bitterness take over your life. Ethan didn't sell that ranch by shouting the loudest. He did it by staying steady long enough for the truth to catch up. And honestly, that's how a lot of real life work too. The people who hold their brow with patience usually leave a stronger mark than the people who try to control everything around them. If you ever deal with an HOA, a bad neighbor, or somebody trying to push you around just because they thought they could, drop a yes out in the comments. And if you believe quiet people shouldn't be mistaken for weak people, type justice so others know they're not alone. And if stories like this mean something to you, go ahead and subscribe. There's are plenty more bros, ranges, and small town battles still ahead.